if I could just have a really big bullhorn and just get this message out to women who are explanting, you can be eager and ready to be implant free, and you can still feel apprehensive. And that doesn't mean that you're making a mistake. It doesn't mean that you're not ready. It means you're normal. It just means you're normal,
It's a big
because
decision.
yeah. And you may feel apprehensive over the surgery. You may feel apprehensive over intimacy. You may feel apprehensive over your recovery. If you've been very ill, you may be thinking, I don't know if my body's going to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You may
Yeah,
be
totally.
apprehensive over the scars. You may be apprehensive over the social stuff. A lot of women are like, what the hell do I tell them at work? Like, this is private. I don't want to share this. Or we all have like our inner circle that we're
Yeah,
transparent with, but there's also some people in our life that it's just, you don't really want to talk about it with them, but they're going to notice, like your partner's boss. You're going to see that
right.
person, but you're not going to be like, hey,
Let's talk about my boobs. Right.
so being
Personally, I
able,
don't care, but I totally get that there are women out there.
exactly. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh my gosh, this
And
lighting is killing me.
again, I love that you're pointing this out about how some people really are concerned about X and other people aren't. And these journeys are so nuanced, right? And so,
So unique.
yeah. And so some women are going to, if your health has been really impacted and you're sure that it's related to your implants, that journey is going to look very different than someone whose health has been impacted, but they're not sure. They're
Right.
just not sure. And some women have a knowing and some women don't. And when you're trying to move forward with that kind of self-doubt, second guessing, what ifing, that journey is very different,
Totally.
and that's part of the challenge right now with breast implant illness is that it's a diagnosis of exclusion,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the human mind dislikes complexity, ambiguity, uncertainty, and volatility. It just hates those things, right? And
Totally.
so if you're not sure, then it opens you up for a lot of just kind of like inner struggling. And so, I always encourage women to allow all of it to be there. You
Mm-hmm.
can't be doing this because you care about your health. You can be doing it because of other reasons. And you can also really be crossing all your fingers and toes that it works out the way that you want it to. You can also have some questions or some doubt.
Yeah.
And that's important because if with BII, if you wait until you're sure, like if you're like, I'm going to wait until I'm sure, well, you might wait a long time because there's no biomarker right now. You're
You
not
might
going to
get
get
a
that.
lot more sick.
Yeah. And then you might get a lot more sick, right? And we don't know what is the long term
Right.
prognosis, right? I'm 4 years out. I feel like a salty old dog. I'm 4 years out and I still have tummy issues,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
so, and some women do. I know someone who's 5 years out and she really struggles with the gut issues and the food sensitivities and things like that. So, we don't know. And so
Yeah.
if you're waiting for that, it's it
It's a
can,
long
it can you
road.
can accumulate a lot. Yeah. So
That I really found because I totally agree with you on everything you just said because I obviously going through it just recently I'm very familiar with those exact feelings and I found a lot of comfort in knowing oddly that it was a good choice no matter what because of how many links to cancer there
yeah.
are now, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
I truly in the back of my mind I'm like worst case scenario I get them out and I've
Yeah.
reduced the risk of cancer later in my life.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And we know for sure that all of our immune systems are impacted negatively, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So, at very least, I've reduced my risk of cancer and my immune system won't have to fight so much.
Yeah. I
Um,
love that you did that. And that's something else I encourage women to do is try to not make explant be about one thing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, we've got single issue voters. Don't be a single issue explanter. Like, open up and use your self-attunement and be really mindfully open to your full experience, right? So that, like,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I wanted to reclaim hugs. Like, I'm a hugger. I wanted to reclaim hugs.
Oh,
You
good,
know,
because
I
we're gonna meet and I'm gonna hug the
we're gonna
crap out of
hug.
you.
I wanted to feel um authentic when I was in
Yeah.
sessions with clients. I work with women on self-acceptance, and I was sitting behind implants that I didn't want, but I
Mm,
was too afraid of the surgery to remove, and so
yeah.
I wanted to harmonize my inner life, so for me there was so much to explant, and I have found in my work with women on these journeys that when they do what you did,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I'm hoping to recover from systemic issues. And it's also important to me because of this and this, then they do better. There's
Yeah.
less of that, like, this has to work out. You know what I mean? That's a lot
Yeah.
of pressure to put on your body,
It is. And there, for me personally, it was, okay, so I've been through a year of just snowballing health issues, a dozen different tests, right? 1,000 different specialists. But it, for whatever reason, was comforting going, okay, if it's not breast implant illness, right? If I still have all of these issues afterward, at least I know. At least
Yeah.
I know it's not that, so it's something else and we can keep
Yeah.
looking.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
thankfully it
Absolutely.
was that. I will say my issues are gone for the most part.
Right. Yeah, I know. Most of mine are too. And again, I didn't even know, like,
Right.
it's fascinating how much it's changed in the last 4 years.
That
It's
is
just, it's a rapidly
amazing.
evolving area of women's health, and such an important one too, because millions and millions and millions of women have implants,
So many of us. I mean, I'm surprised just because I'm outwardly speaking about my experience, obviously, but I'm surprised at the number of people like in my small circle that have them that I didn't know had them.
I know. I have so many women who will reach out and they're talking, and I'm like, wow, I would have
What?
never ever thought, just talking to this person or interacting with this person, that it was on her radar, that, you know what I mean? And
Totally.
that's why I think it's so important for us to be 100% supportive, not
Hmm.
judgmental, and just inclusive, and normalize talking about this,
I
and
agree.
just because breasts matter, like, whether or
To
not
all of
you,
us, right?
yeah,
Like men,
they
women,
just,
it doesn't matter.
yeah, they just matter. I don't personally think that they should, you know what I mean? And I
I
know that a
agree.
lot of us are getting to that place where we're like, wait, why do they matter? Like, that's awesome. And that's what chapter one of Busting Free is really
Hmm.
looking at. But the bottom line is they do. If you grew up in a society where they are sexualized, then your mind is forever going to hold that learning. It can't
Hmm.
fully unlearn that. You might change, you might develop new beliefs, you might say, my worth isn't tied to those things, and
Right.
that's wonderful. However, your mind still holds that original learning, and so let's just acknowledge that that's just part of this experience. And so we hold it, our partners hold it, our surgeons hold it. Like, everybody's got that learning in their mind. Our daughters
Yeah.
hold it, the people that they partner with hold it. So we are going to be able to do something about it if we can talk about it and talk about
Hmm.
that. Yep, breasts, for some of us, they really, really matter. And when you move through this journey and you change them or whatever, you take the aesthetic risks with explant,
Hmm.
prepare yourself, have your own back, take care of yourself, and just show up to it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
um,
That
yeah
makes me want to ask what was it like? What was your husband like, if you don't mind me asking, when you
so
decided to take yours
he's
out?
he's a lot like yours. So,
Really?
he didn't want me to get implants at
Oh
all.
yeah.
And it's funny because I joke around and say that it's his fault that I did, and
No.
he hates that. And the reason I say that is because one night, I was maybe just, I don't know, I'd nursed our last daughter for like a year. So it was a few months after that. And I was sitting on our bed and I had like a spaghetti strap nightgown on, and I had really bad posture. Like, I mean, I was like curved over like a C. So my husband's also like a nerdy biologist. And so
Oh yeah.
he saw me sitting like that. And I looked like one of those like hunched over gorillas. So he said, honey, you know what? You look like a African lowland gorilla. He was commenting on my posture, but I thought he was commenting on the fact that my ski slope boobs were like sitting down really low. You know what I mean?
No.
And I
Yeah.
couldn't let it go. I was like, oh,
Oh.
how did I miss it? Oh my gosh. And I just couldn't let it go. And so he never wanted me to get them. He really wasn't into them. He didn't like they didn't really move a lot, because I had that capsular contracture. They were just very
Oh, right.
unnatural. So he was never a big fan. So when I
Yeah.
wanted to get them out, he was like
All for it.
so excited. He was like, get them out. Cause he also thought
That's amazing.
it can't be good.
Right.
So
What about women? Because I have a handful of them that come to mind already that do not have supportive spouses,
I know,
right? So
I
what
know.
what happens, or what kind of conversations have you had, and how do you work through that with the women that come to you for help?
It depends, right? Because the women that come to me are in a position of access, right? And so they
Mm-hmm.
can access support, either working with me through therapy or working with me as a coach, either way.
Mm-hmm.
But not all women are in that position, right? So either
Right.
there can be some financial barriers, or there can even be just almost like social barriers, like they are just
Mm-hmm.
not supported that much by their partner, like they just can't go, or they feel like they can't go get help, right?
Yeah.
So it depends, right? If you're coming, to me, you're going to have a different conversation. You're going to talk about, you matter too. We're going to do some values work so you can figure out, what this is all really about for you, the kind of woman that you want to show up for yourself on this, and then try to
Mm.
have this important conversation with your partner, and I always distinguish between a safe partner and a not safe partner, right? And
Mm.
so if we have a safe partner, but they're not really on board with the explant, maybe they just need some education, maybe they just need some help in seeing your full experience. Maybe they need help taking your perspective. But if you have an unsafe partner who's shown you they're unsafe through abusive words or emotional neglect or gaslighting, if you know that's what you're dealing with, you've got to get support.
Yeah.
You deserve support and you need support. And so if it isn't with somebody that you pay, there's a lot of women that'll rally around you, some women are
Mm-hmm.
really involved in organizations in their community or churches or whatever, wherever you go to get your support. That's part of why I'm trying to like destigmatize talking about breast implants or explant, is because some
Mm-hmm.
women really do need to have support as they're going through that. So I think it's important to summarize that. Just know if your partner is safe, but kind of like needs a little support, needs a little
Yeah.
bit of schooling on how to help you. And also, your partner does matter too, right? And so if you do have a partner who's like, but I love them, then
Right.
step in their grief with them, you
Oh
know,
yeah. It's an
like be
interesting
with
perspective.
them. Yeah, it's like they matter too. Sure, it's your body, but really they are sexually objectified parts of your body. And so they play a role in your intimacy
Yeah.
and your relationship. So if your partner is a safe partner, but a grieving partner, show up for them, or
Yeah.
be with your partner. But if you've got one of the other ones and they've shown you that, that is where seeing it as it is going to
Mm-hmm.
be really important, and putting out boundaries and protecting yourself from accumulating more of that kind of ridicule that can be very hard for us to unplay once it's been recorded in the mind. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
we're already battling enough in our own brains. The last thing we need is more
Yeah.
more fuel to that fire. I will
Yeah.
say though, I love that perspective because my husband is the love of my life. Like he truly is my best friend, and I would absolutely classify him as a safe partner, right? But I will say this experience has been so interesting because I've never been the woman who's like, oh, I'm going to get on the Facebook groups and get involved and that kind of thing. I've always been pretty self-contained.
Hmm.
This is one experience in my life where I genuinely have found comfort and like genuine love that I was missing by connecting with women also going through this. And
Yes,
it's something, as much
absolutely.
as he is supportive, like he doesn't fully understand what I'm going through, right?
Yep.
Psychologically, physically. And so he is there as much as he can be. But I agree that regardless of if you have a supportive spouse or not, like that that community experience has been very, very helpful for me.
Yep. I talk about that in Busting Free in chapter 4 or chapter 3. I talk about how during times of duress,
Mhm.
women are wired to seek other women who know what we're suffering with. And they've done experiments back in the day when you could do things like this, but they've done experiments where, they took women and they said, okay, you ladies over here, you're going to go into a separate room and you're going to get shocked. And it's going to hurt, not too badly, but it's not going to feel great. And you women over here, you're not going to get shocked. And then they observed what happened. And the women, not surprisingly, they gravitated, they affiliated with the women that were going through the same thing. And if that, so that's what they preferred, was to be with that. If you just put the woman there by herself and there was other women, and she didn't have the other people that were going to have the same experience, she'd rather go be with the other women than isolate and be alone. And a lot of men will isolate and be alone, and they'll kind of like, get themselves ready for whatever they have to go through. But women like to go through things that are hard for us with those affiliative bonds. Like it's really helpful to us to do that. And so it's part of that tend and befriend, part of our nervous system. And so, I see a lot of
Wow.
women with the Facebook groups where they'll be really active leading up to surgery.
Hmm.
And then, they kind of start to peter off. And sometimes they feel guilty about it. And they're like, oh my gosh, I dipped in and took what I needed. And then I'm not there for other women. And it's great. Some women do stay around and really do help and all of that. But it's also normal. Like if you dip in and you're just kind of like in your current cohort, and then
Hmm.
as you're getting better, you just kind of move on and you're doing other things. That's normal because
That's
the
okay.
threat has passed.
Mm.
That's a very normal thing for us to do. So,
That's funny. The only
yeah.
other time in my life I've been that way is having a baby, right? Like postpartum, I definitely sought out other
Yes.
women and their advice. And so I'm thinking that I don't hang out in the postpartum groups nearly as
Yeah.
much. My baby's almost 3 years old. I don't go there. So it just
Exactly.
makes sense.
The threat of early motherhood is over,
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. But, I have a lot of women who call me and say, um, I have a therapist. I love her. We have a great relationship. She doesn't get this. She
mm,
didn't go through this. She doesn't know, can I do coaching with you? And I'm like, yes, that's fine.
yeah.
Because I do get it personally and professionally, and I understand what it's like to kind of move through this. I understand that feeling that you can have afterwards of, a
Hmm.
lot of women struggle with, I I did this to myself. I
That
put
was,
these in,
this is my
there's,
fault.
yeah, it's that I call it breast implant guilt. And,
Mm.
I always say, no, no one does this to herself. Nobody signs up. Nobody's like, hey, I would like to invest thousands and thousands of dollars, and I hope it doesn't work out for me. Like none of us are doing that.
Right?
you
No, I
know,
definitely have felt that. Because of this whole accident with my baby. So my husband is he travels periodically for work, right? And so I was 3.5 weeks post-op, and he was like, I really shouldn't go on this work trip. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. I've got this. It's totally fine. Get headbutted by my almost 3-year-old and end up back in the hospital. And
Yeah.
so he's obviously feeling an enormous amount of guilt.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
the whole thing, I'm like, this is my fault. Like the amount of stress that I've put my family through.
Mm.
I'm 5 weeks post-op. I'm like, I'm not out of the woods yet. I have to have that other procedure on Wednesday. I'm like, this is a drain. Like my husband has had to take over the cooking and the cleaning and all the things that I would,
Yeah.
be contributing to. And so there's a lot of stress and guilt around just a decision I made 12 years ago
Yes.
impacting the people that had nothing to do with that decision now.
I know. I know. And responding to that with a lot of self-compassion is so key, right? Because, you know, if you'd had a crystal ball, and if you'd had a fully informed consent, and if you'd
Mm-hmm.
known everything, you probably wouldn't have gone down this path. And, but you went
Agreed.
forward like I did, you know, thinking and expecting a certain experience. And that's just not how it worked out for you and your body. And so giving yourself grace, like a lot of women, a big area that we work on is self-forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
because they want to go back to their younger self and tell her this and tell her not to do this and just do da, 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 and so just being able to look at that again in this bigger context,
Mm-hmm.
if you were born in a different country, one where breasts weren't sexualized, you would have never made that choice.
Right. It wouldn't have never been on the
No,
forefront of my 19-year-old mind.
absolutely not. There are
Mm-hmm.
cultures on this planet right now where breasts are food sources,
And
period.
that's it.
And if you were born in one of those, nobody would be doing the
Yeah.
cooking and cleaning for you right now.
Right.
you
I'll be
know,
honest, he does a lot of it anyway, but I'm still a little
yeah,
guilty.
good guy.
Right. But
Yeah.
that actually brings up a good point. Why